Thank you for joining us. It is Tuesday, March 22nd. That's 3/22/22. I'm Amy Core, and I'm joined by Kevin Van Eck, and we are back at the Goose Island office. We had 2 great weeks with George Schultz sharing his expertise about how to make great relationships and build a better business in this market. So this morning, Kevin and I are going to expand on that and talk a bit about the art and science of relationships. So on that note, grab your coffee, tea, power smoothie, lemon water, whatever you'd like this fine spring morning, and let's get into another episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Yes, good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this Tuesday. Like Amy said, George had joined us the last 2 weeks, and last week specifically, he talked about the layup listing. And the idea behind the layup listing was that a lot of times we're leveraging the personal relationship, but not necessarily leveraging our expertise or the professional side of our business. We're going to talk about that today because in reality, it's a combination of both of those things. It's a combination of the personal relationship, but also them understanding our value and the expertise we bring. And that's how we're going to maximize our referrals and make sure that when we are referred, that we are referred as strongly as possible.
That's right. We're going to talk a bit about the art and science of our relationships in real estate. And if you're all familiar with Ninja, and many of us out there have taken the Ninja installation, we talk a lot about the relationships and about the flow of being in and connecting with individuals. And what we want to touch on today is the fact that the art and science is a mixture of both personal and professional relationship development. That's learning how to work and create relationships on the personal side of things, but then also focusing on how can I develop and drive a relationship on the professional side. 2 weeks ago, George Schultz talked a lot about how we tend to focus on the art side of our relationship. Many of us develop deep, great relationships with our clients. Oftentimes, we become friends with them. We know and care about them on the personal level. In fact, we do things like sending client appreciation gifts, inviting them to client parties, showing them the fun side of us and all the great things about our personality. But we oftentimes don't spend enough time on the professional side or the science side. And so what George was saying is that sometimes we might lose out on the referral opportunity because our clients might see fun and engaging Amy, but they may not necessarily see awesome real estate expert Amy. So it's about spending some time on the other side, on making sure that we are showing enough of the science side of ourselves when we are relating and connecting with our sphere of influence. So we want to make sure that we are doing things that show we are the best professional, that we understand the market, that we know what's trending and what is happening so that our clients can make great decisions. We also do that though so that our clients know the business side of us so that when they refer us, they can feel confident that they aren't just referring somebody who's great, friendly, and awesome as an individual, but is also really smart when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, so let's talk about the science side because a lot of us are really comfortable with that relationship. We're really comfortable, we're fun to work with, we often become friends with our clients. But the science side is important. As Amy said, as George mentioned, when someone refers you, if they just say, oh, he's a great guy, he's super funny, is that a strong referral for someone that doesn't know you? Likely not. So the science side is really important. We struggle with the science side sometimes. Whether you're new or an experienced agent, we hear it, you don't want to be salesy. So sometimes we back away from talking about business because we don't want to be pushy. But there's an answer here. We need to bring the science side of the conversation. We need to leverage our expertise. If we do it in such a way that provides value versus us touting our expertise or bragging in some cases, or maybe humble bragging in some cases, really, if we provide value, it's going to show our expertise while giving them something of value. So let's talk about 3 ways that we can do this, that we can leverage the science side. We've talked about real estate reviews in the past on Coffee, and this is a big part of the Ninja selling program. Real estate reviews, we're not going to talk about exactly how to do it today. You can reference it from the past, but it really is a quick meeting where you catch up with a current owner of a property. You talk through what's happening in the market and bookended by forward questions, so you are driving the personal conversation too, but it's not a way to leverage or push them into buying or selling. It really is just letting them know what's going on in the market. But connecting with the science side doesn't need to be a big lift either. This can be as simple as sharing a unique stat. Now, we have to be careful when we share stats because stats are not the most unique thing or interesting thing on the planet, right? Stats can be pretty boring. So we have to be cautious about oversharing stats that don't matter. And a good example of this is sharing a really complicated market report every month. What I would suggest you do, and what we have seen success with, is choosing one stat that is interesting, that you can explain and dive into the impact for a current homeowner and sharing that one stat versus sending out days on market every month for the next 2 years when it doesn't impact those that aren't looking to buy or sell necessarily. And the third way you can leverage the science side is by using something called Google Alerts. Here, overall, what you're going to do is you're going to show your expertise within your community, within your neighborhoods, within your market by setting up Google Alerts. We're not going to talk about how to do it. You can Google it. Set up Google Alerts for your community with things like new liquor license, new restaurant, new construction permit. And what you're going to get are articles every day, news articles that you can then share with the people in those communities. So now you're not only showing your expertise in real estate, but that you are on top of what's happening in their market. It's a reason to reach out to them and send them a quick article. And you're staying in touch and have the ability then to have a conversation where you do bring in the personal side with the forward questions.
All really great points, Kevin. So I think it's time for us to tell a little bit of our own personal stories or how we could see when we were selling kind of the art and science in our own relationship. So I have an example of a couple that I knew really well, but I had to play both the art and the science side of things every time that I met with them. So my friends Kurt and Jenny. I knew Jenny for a long time. We had built a great relationship, a great friendship, and I knew when they were considering me to help them buy and sell when they were moving from the city to the suburbs, that her whole focus was going to be working with somebody that she felt comfortable with on a friendship level, that I knew what it was going to be like to make the transition from the city to the suburbs because I had already done it. And our connection had always been one on the friendship side. So I always leaned heavily that way when she and I connected. Now her husband Kurt, on the other hand, was very different. Really smart guy, was in the finance world, and I knew every time he and I talked, he always was kind of drilling me on anything related to real estate. And I knew when we would go to dinner with them, while Jenny and I would be connecting on kind of the softer or art side of things, I always knew that Kurt was going to ask me about any of the houses in the neighborhood that had recently sold or gone under contract. He was really driven by the science side of whether or not I was going to be able to be strong enough to help them buy or sell. Because no matter how great of a friend I was to both of them, he was definitely going to make his decision coming from the science perspective and making sure that he knew I was going to be the best agent to get them the best deal and help sell their home successfully. So a great combination of how to use both, and I bet many of you have similar scenarios out there.
That's great. You can connect with both people because you have to read the room and your audience and understand what they'll connect with you through. Otherwise, you might miss the boat, right? So for me, similar story, I guess. I had a client who never actually worked with me. This was one of my top referral sources, and I talk about them often, but I tend to drift towards the transactional side of the business. And this is what we're talking about today, is that it really has to be a balance between the personal side and the transactional side. I had to make a decision and really force myself to connect personally. And that meant going to events, spending time at charity functions with this person in my database. And while they never bought or sold with me directly, they were my top referral source. And it was only because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone into the personal world where I would go to events with them. And every time I went out with them to a charity event or to a dinner, I would meet 2 or 3 other potential clients. So it paid off. Not only did I have great relationships and continue to have great relationships with them, but it also fostered my business because I focused on the personal side, even though I was really, really comfortable with the transactional and professional side.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it's interesting that that person didn't necessarily buy or sell with you personally, but the amount of referrals you got as a result of developing that relationship is amazing. And that's something that we should always keep in mind. Just because somebody hasn't transacted with us doesn't mean they can't be an amazing referral source if you work with them and develop the relationship. So art or science, or a combination of both. Whatever you may be, it's just a reality of recognizing that that does go into the makeup of relationships. So what we encourage all of you to do is Recognize what you are, and then maybe take a step back and say, hey, is there something that I can be doing to make sure that I am balancing my relationship so that I'm bringing enough art to the relationship, but I'm also bringing enough science. We guarantee that if you have a perfect blend, you're going to see amazing success in your business, and you're going to further develop those relationships down the road, and most importantly, develop some really great referral sources along the way. So make it a great Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, you got this.